to your financial habits. Are you someone who's wasteful? Are you someone who's unduly drawn to material things just for the sake of it? Or are you someone who sees money as, first of all, a way to, build financial security for your family and for the next generation, to educate your children, who have a roof over your head, and definitely to do your part in supporting the community. And that's therein lies to me the spiritual context that money is there as a tool for you to use for your means and to for others as well, as opposed to money driving you or controlling you. And that's where one has to strike a balance.
Amos Madra.
Bimpe Nkontchou, warm welcome to you, founder, CEO of Wealth8. Wow, thank you so much. We've been trying to set this up for some time, but here you are in person. So great to have you here, Bimpe. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Amos. Great to be here.
So, Bimpe, let's start with your career as a finance expert, someone who started this incredible company. How did it all begin? Let's take it all the way back to the start. How did it begin, and how did you get to where we are today?
So first of all, I'm a lawyer by background, by training, and still very much so. Qualified as a lawyer in Nigeria for about 35 years ago, and then moved to the UK and requalified as a solicitor here in 1997, and ran a law firm. So law has been the route to which I've come to this personal finance ecosystem, not by being a professionally trained financial services expert, but it's always been an interest personally. And I found that in a lot of the work I was doing as a lawyer, both in litigation, dispute resolution, and then when I started doing a lot of private client work, which meant working with families who have assets, trying to structure them, trying to plan for the next generation, it struck me that, especially for families from sort of the African continent or diaspora, who are my bulk of my clientele, this whole wealth structuring or personal finance isn't something that we're conditioned to be intentional about. And so I thought, after running a law firm as a solicitor for about 19 years, I decided to pivot and to focus very much in what I call private wealth. And that's the door with which I came to the personal finance area. I did take some exams to requalify, but really my work is more as, I would say, wealth planner, wealth coach, as opposed to being an investment management professional. But I guess it's all in the same ecosystem, to be honest.
Yeah, I think at the core of it, you're a people person. You care for people, and you want to see people, that leveling up.
That's correct. Absolutely. I do. And like I said, I guess I'm more of a, solutions driven person. I'd like to help clients solve problems. And where I found there was a gap, especially, like I said, in, a lot of dispute resolution, money is the issue. A lot of times family disputes can be, money does, become an issue, attention, or even in clients who are trying to create a business, create a company, their knowledge and their money habits are important. So I felt, they do say money can be the root of all evil, but at the end of the day, I think if you manage it well, you can actually, find yourself, in a much more stable and secure situation than if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think some people tend to, on this program, we try and, touch into every area. Some people say that, money is a very spiritual thing, in terms that, there are some cultures that are very comfortable with it because they've been raised in the sense to believe that it's not evil, it's godly, it's been given to them, so they manage it very well. Would you say that that's true? And would you say that more perhaps in the Black community needs to be done in terms of understanding what wealth really is?
I mean, definitely in a spiritual context, I think, if you're a Christian and I'm a Christian, I think one of the things that, the Bible does say is to whom much is given, much is expected. So if you're someone who has great wealth and then actually your faith, obliges you or will make you, spur you on to sharing and to blessing others with what you're blessed with. So that therein lies one way in which money is a good thing, because if you have it and you're spiritual about it, you realize that you haven't got it just because only by your own means. You've been blessed with it, and therefore you should bless others with it, definitely. But at the same time, when it comes to bringing up our children, understanding ourselves, conditioning ourselves, we live, in a capitalist system. You've got to pay your bills. Even Jesus said, "Render to Caesar what is Caesar's." You've got to pay your taxes. So again, the way in which, if you're someone who is spiritual, the way in which you actually measure your success as a Christian is also linked to your financial habits. Are you someone who is wasteful? Are you someone who's unduly drawn to material things just for the sake of it? Or are you someone who sees money as, first of all, a way to build financial security for your family and for the next generation, to educate your children, have a roof over your head, and definitely to do your part in supporting the community? And therein lies, to me, the spiritual context, that money is there as a tool for you to use for your means and to, for others as well, as opposed to money driving you or controlling you. And that's where, one has to strike a balance.
Yeah, that's such a good answer. And I think there's so much that we can take from that. Because if you look at education, for instance, in schools, this is not really taught. Personal finance, how to manage money, make sure that what's going out doesn't exceed what comes in. These are simple things, but, people don't do it. Budgeting, having, knowing exactly what goes out, knowing where your money goes, and just keeping an eye on so many of these subscriptions that we've got, where you're spending money on eating out or whatever it is. You mentioned something about educating our children with these things. Talk to us a bit more about that and what you'd like to see done in the future.
I mean, definitely. I know there's a drive currently in the UK to sort of bring financial literacy to the younger generation, and I think it's amazing how, for example, sex education has been given priority, and that's also important. But I would have expected that in parallel, financial literacy should start really from a young age, such that it becomes part of our DNA, our subconscious, that we need to budget, we need to be aware of, the dangers of, amassing debt. It's so easy to apply for a credit card. There's even the culture of, buy now, pay later. You've got different sort of apps and services that would allow you to go online and, buy something that's you think you want, not need, and pay for it in installments. And then there's a huge interest rate on that. And people don't often understand what they're getting themselves. They're lured by all of the temptation. We're a very consumer-driven society, and even especially for us Black people, we do believe that the packaging is important. So what we wear, where we drive, where we live, and yes, they're good things, but you know what? They should not be the priority. So, and I think our children need to hear that message. But they can only hear the message not just in school, but they can hear the message from parents or caregivers, mentors, role models, and who must, live in accordance with those same rules, as opposed to saying something and doing something else. So yeah, it's something that this whole financial literacy is something that has to be driven in the home, in the community, in the schools, so that a child from age 5, from the time they can count, and as they get older, start to understand the power of money, the beauty of money, but like fire, the danger of money as well. It's super important.
Absolutely, and it ultimately affects everything in our lives. You know, it's not the be all and end all, but it has a massive impact. Marriages, you know, so many marriage breakdowns is because of finance. Couples don't talk to each other. They've got different beliefs. You know, someone believes in saving, another person believes in spending. So there's so many aspects to it, isn't there?
Yeah, that is so true. I think, yeah, well, when you're dating, it's a good time to start talking about money, because that's the other thing, that there isn't enough communication about money in homes. And I would say again, this is my personal experience. I mean, I'm Nigerian and I grew up there before I moved here. In black homes, you know, African heritage homes, money just isn't talked about. It's kind of a taboo. Of course, if there's a lack of it, it'll be obvious, you know, from the standard of living. But if you're sort of, you know, middle class, affluent, or even both parents are professionals and you're earning decent salaries, and the children you kind of project an image that all is well, and you go on holidays and you know, have a nice car in a decent neighborhood. And if you don't tell yourselves as a couple, first of all, can we afford this, or is it time to pull back? You know, currently there's a cost of living crisis, interest rates are skyrocketing, people with mortgages are finding themselves paying 3-4 times what they budgeted for when they bought that home. I would hope that some of those, you know, homeowners are explaining very nicely and carefully to their children that, listen, we might not be able to go on that holiday this year because, you know, our mortgage payments have gone up, as opposed to trying to make everybody happy or keep up the appearance that everything's fine. And that therein lies a problem, that lack of communication around, you know, the impact of any crisis in the family, such that when a real crisis happens, the shock of it can, you know, really destroy, you know, the fiber of the family relationship. And especially it happens, unfortunately, you know, on the passing of, you know, a parent, especially if it's the main breadwinner family passes on. You know, spouse, you know, the wife may not understand or know how good or bad the financial situation of the family is until that day happens, and then it's, you know, it's like throwing a torpedo into the family. And so that's the thing about communication about money, is super important.
Yeah, again, a very good point you make there. Now, some people really believe in credit cards, whereas other people will not touch them. Debit cards are good enough. Now, some people will say a credit card is good for protection as long as they pay before the end of the month, before those high interests hit you. Now, where do you stand with this? Can we use credit cards for protection? So, for example, if you purchase an item that is worth, I don't know, £30,000, you put down a £700 or £70 deposit, you'll still get that money back in its full, compared to, say, somebody who paid using a debit card. That same protection isn't there. But then again, there's the argument, if you don't make the payment at the end of the month, the payments are going to hit you hard.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and even when I speak, you know, I guess I don't want anyone to think I'm perfect. I've done, you know, had my own financial horror stories and mistakes, and definitely around credit cards growing up, moving here and having access to credit so quickly and so easily. When I had a job and thinking, wow, I can afford all those, you know, beautiful clothes and handbags and everything that, you know, we want. And then you find yourself, you know, you won those shoes, I won them out, and you're still paying for them on your credit card, more or less. And you think, really, was it really worth it? So, I mean, like I said, I made those mistakes, understood. There are two things with credit cards. First of all, the good part of a credit card is helps build your credit history. You do need to have credit history living in the UK, because if you're someone who has no credit card or has taken no loan or had never bought anything on hire purchase, if you do decide to do that, to buy a car, even though you can afford to pay it all at once, most car companies offer you, you know, leasing or hire purchase agreements. If they can't find a credit footprint, believe me, even though you can afford to make those payments, you'll be rejected. So credit card does that one thing. It helps you build your credit history. As long as you're paying regularly, or or 90% of what you've used the card for every month, your credit history will be excellent, your credit rating. And you want an excellent rating, to be able to actually, do all the things I've just talked about. So the credit card is good to help you, build a credit footprint, but your prepayment habit is what will give you your credit rating. Definitely, when you talk about the protection, yes, credit cards do give that sort of protection, but so does your home insurance, or your vehicle insurance. So if you're thinking of protection, as in if you bought that item on a credit card, normally you can get, if it's stolen or broken down, you can claim against it. Usually most credit cards come with an insurance for the item you've purchased. But I would say your home insurance or vehicle insurance is just as good. So the only thing a card is good for is your credit history, and the repaying regularly, all or most of it, is what will ensure you have a good credit rating.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wise words indeed. Thank you. So now just talking about the wealth management side of things, do you think that, what's the best way for, the everyday family to go about? Do we need to have, obviously, you've got try and clear as much debt as possible, savings, how much savings do we need to have? Do we need to have an emergency fund for when things go wrong? And then also in terms of, what can we do in terms of maybe investing as well?
Well, I think definitely managing your debt is very, very, very important. So the different, there are lots of, I would say, self-help, finance, personal finance books out there, and different rules, and people have different, formula that work for them. But it's very typical for you to look at your paycheck every month and divide it up and say, right, for example, it could be 60, 20, 20. 60% of my paycheck is going to go towards my needs. My needs being my rent or mortgage, utility bills, children's school fees, grocery shopping, everything you need. And even within the grocery shopping, you've got to make sure you are prudent. But your 60% should go on your needs. 20% should go towards your wants. That is holidays, hairdressers, your manicure, pedi, your gym membership, all the lovely things that eating out, and if you have different bank accounts, and these days you can have even within the same banking system or bank provider, you could have 3 accounts. You have a current account, you have a savings for your emergency, and your savings for your wants. So your wants, put 20% aside every time, and the last 20% should go into your investments, your savings, and so 60 for your needs, 20 for your wants, 20 for your savings and investments. Now, you mentioned an emergency fund, absolutely essential. If you don't have one, that savings that I'm talking about should initially be towards an emergency fund. An emergency fund should typically be about 3 to 6 months worth of your overheads. And again, 3 to 6 months worth of your needs. So your mortgage payments or rent, plus your school fees and grocery shopping and utility bills. At least those are things that you have to, have, ready to pay for. So if you have 3 months, 4 months, 6 months worth of that, you're ready for that eventuality. And, the pandemic showed us that is so possible. That unexpected eventuality when jobs were lost, people had to take pay cuts, companies went, folded up because of lack of, customers, especially where they're companies or businesses that relied on people being physically present. So imagine if you were a restaurant owner or a partner in a gym business, and if you didn't have your emergency fund, not only were you laying off staff, but you yourself probably, would have had severe financial problems. And that did happen. And that has, I think, driven home to many people the need to have that word emergency is a real word. It does happen to not just to the next door person or the other person, it happens to everyone. So emergency, so that's your 20% is your savings and investment. Build up your emergency fund first before thinking of investing. And that emergency fund should be kept, at least my opinion, and I'm not giving you sort of hardcore advice here, but it's what I do, should be kept in cash or something that's easy to liquidate. So don't put your emergency fund in the house you have to sell when the emergency comes, or or something else that's not easy to sell. So if it's something that you can, an account or an ISA, something that you can easily get your hands on within 3 to 5 working days, that's what your emergency fund. And then you can start, after you've done that, you can start looking at investing in other types of assets.
Yeah, investing in Wealth8. Talk to us about some of the stocks and sorts of investments that we could put our money in.
Well, Wealth8 is a mobile app. It's work in progress. It was launched a year and a half ago. We're doing a version 2 rebuild, and there are very strict rules around sort of giving advice on air. So I will say that currently you have different types of instruments or financial products, which range from putting your money into a mutual fund, which is a basket of different types of stocks and shares or bonds, or an ETF is similar to a mutual fund, again, or you can buy shares directly on the stock exchange. You can invest in property, and that's one thing I know people do look at as long term. There are ISAs regularly every year by various ISA providers. So, and Wealth8 is trying to deliver the similar, variety of investment instruments for people to actually access easily on an app at a low level, and hopefully, as we go on this journey, it will become something that's accessible to everyone. It's still work in progress. Not quite there yet.
Absolutely, we'll keep an eye on that, and I'm sure you'll be back to tell us more about that. But in terms of the different diversity of investments, would you say for someone starting out to put something in the mutual funds, something in the ISA, something in all these different pots, including the mortgage as well?
I mean, to be honest, what I would really say is financial education is key. You can't sort of give generic advice about what to put your money in, because you need to know the person's background, their relationship with money, their risk appetite. You need to know how much they understand about what they're doing when they're investing in any of these products. And so one of the things that I feel is key, and which we're trying to do also through Wealth8, and even the other, I do run another company called an advisory company, W8 Advisory, is to really bring that financial education home to people of all ages, because it's one thing to either go on an app and say, I can put my money in, even if people were putting money in all sorts of things, crypto, there's a lot of things out there, but you need to be educated as to what this means. The impact of investing also means knowing that your capital is at risk. There's nobody ever guarantees that you're going to make the percentage. And if anybody ever tells you that, oh, we can guarantee 10%, frankly, you've got to be very cautious, or read the lines or get professional help very quickly. So so I think that's the main thing. People need to understand that the capital is at risk when you're investing, for sure. But if you understand it well enough, and it's not that difficult, because like I said, I'm a lawyer. I've come into personal finance. I didn't study finance at uni, but the areas of personal finance that I talk about are things that are everyday and can be understood. And the idea for us at Wealth8 is to try to help break it down, so people understand first and foremost what they're doing, the impact and the risk they're taking, and be able to measure their risk appetite, and if need be, seek professional help before they actually dip their toe in investing.
Yeah, and I think that's very practical, and it's what's needed now. You look at the cost of living and all these issues that we're dealing with. Again, inflation, you mentioned earlier, rising. I'm sure you get lots of people just, coming to you, I'm at the end of my tether. What do I do? How do I manage this? How do I get out of this hole?
True. So, I work in tandem with some actual professional financial advisors. So I'm more of I would say that sort of wealth coach, that person who, like all things I've talked about, tries to help you understand your money personality, try to, get you to have a plan, a structure around what's your immediate, medium and long-term goal. And then trying to educate you around things like, what's the risk attached to different products. But then the decision as to what product you want to invest in, people do it either because they're comfortable enough to select it themselves, or seeking the help of an expert, sort of professional advisor, financial advisor. So yeah, when people do seek my help, it's a matter of me bringing them on the journey, but not just with me, but with other third-party experts.
Bimpe, you're a hero. You're what's needed right now. I think we all need somebody like you in our lives to sit down, pen to paper. Let's sort this out. Let's put a budget together. And you know what? I think it sounds, sometimes people thinking, is it complicated? But if you're willing to sit down and put the time in, you'll reap the rewards of it. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. That's very true. And, look, we're so adaptable. When we look at the fact that, my generation, many of us didn't have, mobile phones or when growing up, but now we use them. We use our mobile phone more and more. And a new tool comes up. You can do this. You can use Instagram, and we're learning to use all those tools. It's the same brain cells that you need to learn how to manage your money. You shouldn't always expect an expert to tell you how to do it. I think you need to understand how to do it, what to do, and yes, get an expert advice as an overlay. But I think the basics is something that, if you take time out, can be understood really, definitely. And I have to add here that women, tend to be, one of the ones who we sometimes, dig our heads into the sand and just think, oh, if again, culturally, dad or husband or brother, somebody else, a male person, a dominant patriarch in their life, will take care of it. And in times have moved on, I think as a woman, and I also had to come to a realization in time that I had to be able to be confident about, even if I've made financial mistakes, how to redress them, where to seek help, where to seek information. And really, if you're a woman who's serious about your own financial future, chances are your children, because women do tend to be the main caregiver, your children will benefit from that as well. And that nurturing will include, financial education.
Absolutely. And that's how generational wealth is created, passing on to their children's children's children.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is so true. No, that's absolutely. And luckily there's a lot more information out there now. There are different, apps and different sort of communities online, and access to information is and I think, like I said, the government and the EFT have a big financial literacy campaign. There are different things that you can access if you're serious about it. The information is out there.
Absolutely. Bimpe, the audience will definitely want to contact you and connect with you. What can we expect from you in the near future, and how can they connect with you?
Well, I am, obviously pretty much up to my ears in trying to rebuild a very robust digital investment platform called Wealth8. I also run my sort of wealth advisory business, where I really work with affluent families, business families, trying to work at generational wealth and planning, estate planning. So the idea is I'm available sometimes to do webinars. I take part in also talks and into different networks. I'm also on my email. If you go to info@W8advisory, you can actually reach me and drop me a few lines. But I would have to ask you to bear with me. It's a pretty busy time of my life and work, professional work and business at the moment. So you may not get an answer instantly. But like I said, there are lots of tools out there and different apps and different services. But I'm happy to help when I can.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure we'll put all the links in the descriptions for the audience to be able to connect with you. Now, just one last question. I'm curious about this one. Wealth8. I wasn't sure. Was it because of the postal address, or was it because 8 represents infinity? I don't know. Where did the name come from?
Well, you've picked up a few things. It's a combination of many things. But yeah, I think the most important message is that 8 on its side is the Mobius. And the Mobius is the infinity symbol. So when I started the first business, which is called W8 Advisory, and you have a website, it's focusing on helping African business families build generational wealth. Yeah, it's for me the tagline. My tagline was and still is, your wealth is your future. And definitely, I mean, and the whole idea of infinite wealth, generation and transfer of wealth without conflict, without pain, without stress to the next generation is what I advocate. So yes, the 8 and W is for wealth as well, so that helps. But the 8 does symbolize all of those things, the infinity of wealth that I pray will come to many, many more families of color and families of African heritage.
Yeah. Bimpe, they say not all heroes wear capes. And I think
Oh my goodness,
no. What you're doing here is incredible, because you're changing generations, you're changing people's lives with the work that you're doing. It's so impactful. It's changing the narrative, and this is generational, and this is infinite, because it will continue long after we've all left this world, and there's generations years down who are still, doing very well because of what you taught their ancestors. And for that, I just want to celebrate you and thank you for what you're doing.
That's very kind. If I could add, when you look around us, there are many companies, both here in the West, in Europe, and the US, which are family owned, have been set up 10, 12 generations ago. How many of those companies or businesses are Black owned businesses that are in their 10th or 12th or 20th generations? I mean, the shoes we wear, whether it's Clark's shoes or the chocolates from Cadbury's, there's so many brands that people don't realize are family names, or family owned or family originated, and they're still around hundreds of years. And I'm sort of always disturbed that Black people haven't contributed in that space. We're very hardworking, when it comes to whether it's whatever we're building, put our mind to, we tend to succeed. We're succeeding in sports, music, all of that talent, but it's only for the now. So my prayer is that we all sit and start to really think of that long-term legacy. And that legacy, yes, starts with money, but with money habits, with philanthropy, with giving, with structure, with wisdom. And so, like I said, my work is part lawyer, part coach, part, part sort of financial sort of, not quite advisor, but yeah, financial coach is what I put to it. But all geared towards generational wealth, especially for Black families.
Amazing. Bimpe, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amos. Great.
If you want some amazing inspiration, check out the videos next to me, and I'll see you right there.